The sky over London held that muted gray hue that always seemed to cloak the city whenever the monarchy prepared to stand on display. It wasn't rain, not yet, but the damp heaviness in the air carried the sort of weight that made every uniform seem tighter, every polished shoe less steady. Prince William adjusted his jacket, his thoughts sharper than the creases in his trousers. It wasn't about him, it was about honoring those who had carried the flag into blood and fire. But William understood something deeper. Every glance, every photograph, every whispered remark would paint a picture of his future reign. Fail here and it wasn't just his image that would suffer, it was the very respect the crown held among soldiers who had already lost faith once before. Amid the hum of final preparations, the veterans sat in formation like statues carved from the steel of sacrifice. They were old, yes, but their eyes still burned. Their presence transformed the rehearsal into something almost unbearable. William felt the air vibrating with the weight of judgment. For the veterans, this wasn't theater, it was sacred. Into that atmosphere strolled Tom Parker Bowles, steps as casual as a man entering a wine tasting. He carried himself like he belonged, though everyone in the room knew he didn't. He wasn't a prince, he wasn't even a titled lord, but through the gravity of his mother, Queen Camilla, Tom had learned to move like one of them. His charm was a shield, his smile a dagger, and that evening both were polished to perfection. He wandered to the back, feigning interest in the technical equipment. Most people would have dismissed him as an idle guest, but his hand moved with too much certainty. His gaze lingered with too much calculation. Within seconds, a device no bigger than a matchbox was slipped into the sound system. His face betrayed nothing. By the time the technicians returned, he was already applauding William's opening rehearsal speech, eyes wide with false admiration. The moment came like a whip crack. William bent to shake the hand of a wheelchair-bound veteran, and instead of solemn silence, the air erupted with distortion. A voice oozed through the speakers, cruel and mocking, spitting insults at the very men the ceremony sought to honor. The veterans stiffened, some trembled with anger, others with shame. William's throat burned. It was humiliation born not of failure but sabotage, and he felt it like a spear through the chest. Security killed the feed. A staff member muttered about technical glitches, but across the lawn, Princess Anne didn't flinch or fumble. Her eyes narrowed with surgical precision. She had been in this game too long to mistake malice for misfortune. She closed her eyes, replaying the distorted cadence in her mind, filtering through the years of voices she'd cataloged in silence. The mockery was warped, but beneath the disguise she caught it, the rhythm of Tom Parker Bowles. Anne didn't announce her suspicion. She didn't storm or rage, she simply slipped away, her face impassive, her mind blazing. If William was the shield of the crown, she was its scalpel, and she had just located the infection. The palace reception later that evening was supposed to soothe the wound, but the tension coiled tighter instead. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above rooms heavy with suspicion. William endured handshakes like blows, every smile from a guest masking whispered doubt. Tom floated among art enthusiasts, sipping wine, his posture relaxed, his smirk fleeting but unmistakable. Then came the crash. The glass case of historic metals shattered, shards and treasures strewn across the marble floor. Gasps tore through the hall, veterans recoiled, and William's fury ignited like dry kindling. Camilla moved fast, sweeping in to shield her son with excuses about negligence and faulty displays, but Anne had seen Tom's eyes in the instant before the crash. Not surprise, not horror, satisfaction. The pieces of the game were sliding into place, and Anne understood. This wasn't a careless son indulging in mischief. This was sabotage, deliberate and escalating. William, caught in the storm, clenched his fists, fighting to remain the composed heir. Tom raised his glass from across the hall, his look carrying a silent promise. This was only the beginning. The lawns of the palace stretched wide beneath the morning light, dew clinging to the blades of grass like tiny jewels. Security ringed the perimeter with a vigilance that bordered on paranoia. Prince William stood at the center, his jaw tight, his eyes scanning every shadow, every flicker of movement. The veterans were arriving, and he had no margin left for error. This wasn't just just another rehearsal. It was the final test before the ceremony, and already he felt the air bristling with unseen threats. Tom Parker Bowles ambled onto the grounds with an expression of studied boredom, hands tucked into his pockets as if the entire spectacle were beneath him. He nodded politely to the officers he passed, murmuring compliments about the uniforms or the music rehearsals, a predator masking itself with charm. Yet every step drew him closer to the equipment once again, and his gaze lingered on the cluster of cables and machinery like a moth circling flame. From her vantage point on the stone steps, Princess Anne watched him with eyes that never wavered. She stood like a sentinel, her posture straight and uncompromising. For years, Anne had earned a reputation for bluntness and instinct that rarely failed her, and now she trusted that instinct completely. She saw Tom pause near a man in a dark coat, a face that didn't belong among the official staff. Their interaction was swift, barely noticeable to anyone else. A handshake, a slight lean forward, a metallic gleam. The stranger pocketed a lighter, then melted back into the crowd. The sense of smoke came almost immediately. At first it was subtle, a faint acrid tang that whispered rather than shouted. Then, in a breath, flames licked up the base of the royal standard, and the calm shattered into chaos. A whoosh of fire roared skyward, black smoke curling like an omen. Shouts erupted, alarms blared, and security scrambled with extinguishers. Veterans stumbled in confusion, some shielding their faces, others frozen in place as memories of old battlefields surged back unbidden. One frail man, his medals gleaming proudly on his chest, was shoved in the commotion. He toppled hard onto the grass, his groan lost beneath the blare of sirens. William's blood chilled at the sight. Rage and duty collided inside him. He barked orders with a voice that cut through the panic, directing security to extinguish the flames and aid the injured. His composure never cracked, his commands precise. He became the center of control, the eye of the storm, and then Tom made his move. With theatrical timing, he sprinted toward the fallen veteran, crouching low and cradling the man in his arms. He tilted his body deliberately, ensuring every nearby lens captured his gesture of compassion. His face twisted into a mask of selfless concern, eyes glistening as though the tragedy had pierced him deeper than anyone else. Cameras clicked. Onlookers murmured. The narrative was already writing itself. Tom, the unexpected savior, standing tall where William had remained distant. By the time the flames were subdued, the damage was done. Whispers crackled through the crowd and spilled beyond the gates. A hero's tribute turned into calamity. Questions swirled about safety, about leadership, about William's detachment. Tom, meanwhile, accepted quiet praise with false humility, bowing his head as if embarrassed by his own gallantry. But Anne had not missed the lighter. She had not missed the exchange, nor the flicker of triumph in Tom's eyes as he basked in the glow of his performance. Her certainty hardened into iron. He wasn't merely toying with spectacle. He was orchestrating it, weaving disaster into theater for his own gain. That night, the palace felt colder than stone. William stared out from a window, his reflection fractured in the glass, his thoughts consumed by suspicion. The flames, the shattering glass, the venomous voice through the speakers, all of it pointed to one truth. Someone inside the walls wanted him ruined, and that someone was no stranger. It was family. The day of the dedication dawned under a sun that seemed too bright, as if determined to illuminate every secret lurking in the shadows. Victoria Cross Grove stood ready, its rows of seats aligned like soldiers on parade, banners fluttering against the late spring breeze. The veterans, dressed with solemn pride, filed in with steady steps. Each crease in their uniforms, each medal polished to a mirror shine, told a story of sacrifice. Prince William walked among them with a sense of gravity pressing into his shoulders. This was more than ceremony, it was legacy carved into the soil of history. At the far edge of the grounds, Tom Parker Bowles lingered with his phone clutched tightly. His usual mask of charm was stripped away, replaced by cold determination. His plan had been sharpened to perfection, chaos in the guise of outrage, spectacle disguised as patriotism. The timing had to be flawless. William took the podium, his voice firm, carrying across the open air as he spoke of loyalty, courage, and the unshakable bond between nation and soldier. For a moment, the crowd seemed united, drawn into his sincerity. Then, like a thunderclap, the disruption exploded. A group of men dressed as veterans surged forward, their shouts venomous, their accusations cutting through the calm like jagged glass. They railed against William, branding him unfit, accusing him of dishonor, demanding he step away. Security rushed to intercept, but William's heart hammered with clarity. Retreat meant surrender. Silence meant complicity. He abandoned the safety of the podium and strode into the chaos, ignoring the flustered guards tugging at his sleeve. His boots struck the ground with a steady rhythm until he stood among the genuine veterans, the ones watching with wounded pride as imposters howled before them. William bent low, clasping each elder's hand, his gaze locking into theirs. No speeches, no defenses, just the raw vow of a man refusing to let his honor be rewritten by lies. The gesture rippled outward. Cameras captured the intimacy of the moment, the sheer authenticity that no fabrication could match. For an instant, the tide shifted. The accusations faltered, the noise dimmed, and the truth of William's sincerity radiated louder than any microphone. But Tom was not finished. From his shadowed perch, he pressed his screen, unleashing the weapon he had prepared. A doctored clip shot through the wires of the internet like wildfire. It showed William smirking, distorted into an expression of contempt, the caption blazing with accusations of arrogance toward the veterans. Within minutes, phones buzzed, headlines screamed, and the ceremony's fragile redemption buckled under a new storm. William saw the edited footage on a monitor backstage, his own image twisted into something unrecognizable. Yet this time, he did not flinch. He ordered his media team to release the uncut footage. Every second of raw angles, every honest frame. He demanded absolute transparency. It was a gamble, but he trusted the public to see truth when it stood bare. Princess Anne, relentless in her pursuit, had already cornered the man who received the lighter. Through quiet force and precision, she extracted the evidence needed. Recordings surfaced, audio of Tom's voice directing the fake protesters, instructing their cues, their fury choreographed like theater. It was enough to pierce the veil. In the council chamber days later, King Charles sat in silence at the head of the table. Beside him, Anne laid out the evidence piece by piece, while William remained unyielding in his stance. Tom's defiance crumbled as the proof played out. The lighter exchange, the audio fingerprints, the staged uproar. Camilla stood pale, caught between the instinct to defend her son and the undeniable truth unraveling before her. Charles's verdict fell like an iron bell. Tom was stripped of every privilege, every connection to royal life, banished not by law, but by blood. His exile was silent, yet absolute. The palace doors closed to him forever, his name scrubbed from guest lists, his presence erased. William and Anne emerged side by side at the next military event, their expressions steady, their unity unspoken but unmistakable. The monarchy had endured the assault. Honor had been preserved, not through spectacle but through resilience. Tom Parker Bowles faded into the margins, a ghost of ambition consumed by his own schemes, while William's vow to stand as guardian of truth burned brighter than ever.